What's going on, everyone? I've got to say, not a ton has changed since my last training video. I know, not terribly exciting. I'm still losing around a pound per week on average. My diet is still feeling relatively easy. I'm still maintaining my strength, pretty much no problem in the gym, and I'm even making some progress still. And my nagging hip pain is pretty much 98% healed at this point. So yeah, things are pretty uneventful. Maybe not what most people want to be hearing when they're watching a YouTube video. Drama, excitement, I know that's really what's captivating to watch. But that's the thing with natural bodybuilding. If things are remaining relatively uneventful, that's probably a good thing. Slow, steady progress from following a progressive plan over a relatively long period of time is where the real magic tends to happen. And it's true. Everything is going pretty much completely according to plan for me right now. Well, now that I've got you all bored to tears, I'm going to walk you through another one of my full body strength training sessions to show you what I'm doing and to share some tips with you along the way. Let's dive in. First up in today's session are these Romanian deadlifts. I've got to say, I think that progressing with these over the past few years has done a lot, both for my hamstrings and glutes and my spinal erectors and traps. The main movers during the exercise are definitely the hamstrings and glutes, since the movement is pure hip hinge, but the muscles of the back still have to work insanely hard to keep the spine stable and supported, especially during the bottom super deep position of each rep. When I do these, I put a lot of focus on bracing my midsection super hard to help keep my spine supported too, and ultimately to help me keep the majority of tension where I want it on my hamstrings and glutes. When I get deeper into my prep, I'll likely lower the load on this and increase my rep target instead of lifting heavier with the lower rep target. I'm only doing sets of around 5 reps with this load right now. When I get to the point of being super lean, it might not be worth the risk of doing super heavy sets of 5 versus doing slightly lighter sets of, say, 8 to 10 reps. Flat dumbbell bench press is up next. Here's a couple of quick tips if you struggle to feel your chest when you do these, or if you mostly feel your shoulders instead of your pecs when you do these. So tip number 1, I would aim to lift the dumbbells as far down as possible, not to just where your arms are parallel with your body. By moving as low as possible or getting your elbows as low as possible, you'll maximally stretch out your pecs and potentially hit them harder compared to moving with shallower depth. Tip number 2 is pause for a split second or longer in the super deep bottom position of each rep. Sitting in the bottom super stretched position will simply expose your pecs to tension for longer when they're in their most stretched position, which might add some extra muscle growth stimulus, but at the very least, leave you feeling your chest more. And tip number 3, just don't lift too heavy. If you're finding that you're unable to implement my first 2 tips, it might just be because you're using dumbbells that are too heavy for you right now. I would try picking a weight that's challenging, but not so challenging that you can't move with good depth, or potentially pause for a second or two at the bottom of each super deep stretched position. Leg extensions are next. A couple of tips with this one to help you get the most out of hitting your quads, starting with this one. Set the seat as far back as it will go and let yourself lean back. Doing so will set your hips in a more extended position, which, funny enough, will probably allow your rectus femoris, the middle head of your quads, to get more of a hit. Tip number 2, aim to fight the burning sensation for as long as possible throughout each set. I think that intuitively we want to stop the set once we start to feel discomfort, right? It's a pretty basic human instinct. If it hurts, then stop doing it. But with this, And with many exercises, or even all exercises to some extent, I've found that I can often do more reps after the burning sensation sets in or even starts to get intense. And sitting in that discomfort is probably, or oftentimes, what it takes to expose your muscles to enough mechanical tension to keep them growing. Chest-supported dumbbell rows are up next. I'm doing these to really hit my traps, and I'm doing them in this chest-supported position on this training day to take my spinal erectors completely out of the equation after doing the Romanian deadlifts earlier in the session. I do standard dumbbell bent over rows on a different training day instead to keep my spinal erectors from getting more beat up than I want them to be. One of the most helpful cues I found when doing these to really reinforce my mind-muscle connection with my traps is to intentionally reach forward at the bottom of each rep when my arms are completely extended. This seems to help stretch my traps out more to the point of really feeling that deep stretch. My traps have admittedly been a weak point on my physique that I've been trying to bring up over the past few years, so doing things like this to improve my mind-muscle connection and ultimately hit my traps more effectively has been a priority for me to build that muscle up. Incline dumbbell lateral raises superset with dumbbell overhead press is up next. You know the drill with these. Controlled tempo, pauses at the top of each rep, and zero momentum. This is an exercise that's both super effective for me and also one that I know, if I'm not careful, can lead to nagging pains fast. If I lift too heavy and start to feel my joints or tendons starting to move against the grain, I know it won't take much to leave me with an unwanted painful issue. So for these, I'll typically lift no heavier than 20 pounds or so and do sets of above 15 reps with this kind of control. The higher rep targets and controlled style of lifting leaves me with tons of stimulus for my delts, but without any unwanted damage to my joints or tendons along the way. And with the dumbbell overhead press, I'll typically lift for sets of around 8 to 12 reps with the same style of lifting and using moderately heavy loads. I mentioned this in my last video, but I prefer to do this movement in this manner rather than aiming to lift as much load over my head as possible when I'm at my freshest. My mind-muscle connection with my delts is ridiculous, and most importantly, I think I've built a decent chunk of muscle doing it regularly and consistently like this over the past few years now. Incline dumbbell bicep curls are next. Finally, a different exercise than my machine preacher curls to share with you today. Several months ago, I developed a nagging injury to my left elbow that left me having to be very particular about my bicep exercise selection. For that reason, I was left doing machine preacher curls only, since they were the only exercise that didn't aggravate the pain. But here I am now with a fully recovered elbow and able to do this exercise again, which is great because it's one of my favorites. A helpful cue with these is, in addition to moving slower on the eccentric or when the dumbbell moves down, is to aim to reach out a bit as you lower the dumbbells instead of simply aiming to lower them straight down. It helps to make the biceps work a bit harder in their stretch position, which has been working great for me. Give it a try yourself. And dumbbell skull crushers are next. This is what works for me. Lighter weight, slower tempo, pauses at the bottom of each rep, refrain from any swinging or the use of momentum. It might not seem like the most exciting kind of lifting, but it leaves me consistently with a feeling of high tension on my triceps, followed by a big old pump, and with the bonus of having elbows that feel healthy. Sometimes it's the style of lifting that seems to be the most boring from an outside perspective that actually lead to the best, consistent, ongoing progress. And last, but certainly not least, are these calf raises. Fun fact, although it's tempting to skip training your calves or to just not train them hard, it's helpful to know that they're actually bigger than any muscle of the upper body. Yep, they consist of more mass than your pecs, your delts, your lats. I know that for me, knowing that actually gives me a bit of extra motivation to keep training my calves hard, even though it can sometimes be tempting to think of them as an afterthought. And honestly, the other motivation for me is simply walking around in shorts outside in the summer. There's something impressive about a guy walking around with big cut calves in the summertime. That's good enough motivation for me, competitions aside. And that's the session. I'd love to know what you think. Did you find anything in the workout to be specifically helpful? Let me know in the comment section below. Before this video comes to a close, I wanted to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos, recording podcast episodes, or making Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. I've been doing this work since 2018 and love helping my clients to transform their bodies and ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, you're invited to hit the link in the description below to learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to sign up for a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.